The heavy steel door slammed shut with a thunderous echo that rolled down the corridor like thunder trapped in a cave. Deep inside ADX Florence, the most secure prison in America, inmate Marcus Reed sat on his bed, staring at the gray wall that had become his world. The light above him flickered. In this place, even the air felt heavy, thick with silence. For years, Marcus had lived the same way, alone, watched by cameras, locked away 23 hours a day. But tonight, something changed. He heard at first as a faint tap, tap, tap behind the concrete wall. At first, he thought it was a pipe. Then he heard it again, steady, deliberate. Marcus pressed his ear to the wall. Another sound followed, a whisper. "Can you hear me?" He froze. No one talked in ADX. The walls were supposed to be unbreakable. He whispered back, "Who is this?" The voice returned, soft but certain. "Midnight." Marcus's heart began to race. He pulled back, listening for footsteps. A guard passed by, keys rattling, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the slot in the door. Then silence again. Marcus sat there, replaying that one word, midnight. When the lights finally dimmed for the night cycle, Marcus lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Minutes felt like hours. Then, as the clock struck 12, the flickering stopped. The entire block went dark. No sound, no guards, no humming lights. Then came the vibration. A soft tremor ran through the floor, like something heavy moving below. The wall behind Marcus shuddered. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then a sharp metallic click, his cell door unlocking. He sat up instantly. What the... The door creaked open an inch. Then another. The red emergency lights flicked on, casting a strange glow across the hallway. Marcus stepped closer. Every other door on the block remained closed. Only his was open. He took one cautious step out. The hallway was empty. No guards, no movement, just a hum of electricity and the faint echo of alarms far away. Then, through the speakers overhead, a calm, robotic voice repeated, "Containment breach in Sector 4. Marcus's chest tightened. A containment breach inside ADX Florence? Impossible. This was the Alcatraz of the Rockies, a fortress built so no one could ever escape. Yet his door stood open. He glanced back at his tiny cell. He could step inside and pretend nothing happened, or walk forward into the unknown. He chose the unknown. As he crept down the corridor, emergency lights blinked red and white, painting the concrete in flashes. Somewhere deeper in the prison, a siren began to wail. Then, from the shadows ahead, a figure appeared. At first, Marcus thought it was a guard, but the man wore an orange jumpsuit like his own. He moved calmly, hands clasped behind his back, as if the chaos didn't exist. The man stopped under a light, his face half hidden. "Marcus Reed," he said softly, "we've been waiting for you." Marcus's stomach turned cold. "Who are you?" he demanded. The man smiled faintly. Someone who still remembers the way out. Before Marcus could reply, the lights above them shut off again, pitch black. The corridor filled with a distant alarm, and somewhere metal slammed shut. The voice over the speaker crackled once more, louder this time. "All units, lockdown breach confirmed." Then silence, except for the whisper that came again, right beside Marcus's ear. "Tonight, everything changes." The lights flashed back on, and the man was gone. Only the open hallway remained, stretching endlessly into the red haze of warning lights. Marcus stood frozen, heart pounding, staring into the emptiness. He didn't know whether he was part of a rescue or a trap, but one thing was certain. Nothing in ADX Florence was ever supposed to open, and yet, tonight it had. Marcus stood frozen in the red light, his mind racing. He glanced down the corridor again, half expecting the man to return, but the hallway was empty. The alarms had stopped. The silence that followed was even worse than the noise. He took a cautious step forward. Each sound of his bare feet on the cold floor echoed like thunder. His instincts screamed that something was wrong, but curiosity pulled harder. Whoever that man was, he knew Marcus's name, and in a place like ADX Florence, that meant something. As Marcus reached the end of the corridor, he saw movement in the corner of his eye. A shadow glided across the wall, then stopped. "Who's there?" he whispered. From behind a half-open security door, a voice answered calmly. "I told you, Marcus. We've been waiting for you." Marcus turned slowly. The man from before stepped out again, the red light flickering across his face. He was older, maybe in his 50s, with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. His jumpsuit was faded, the letters ADX nearly worn away. Marcus steadied his voice. "What do you want?" The man smiled faintly. "To show you something no one else has seen in 30 years. Before Marcus could speak, the man tilted his head toward the end of the hall. "The guards will be here soon. You can stay and wait for the next 10 years in that box, or you can follow me." Marcus hesitated. He didn't trust a stranger, but the idea of being locked away again, forgotten in a cell, made his stomach twist. Against his better judgment, he nodded. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. The man turned and started walking, his steps steady. "My name's Alan," he said. "I built things before I came here. Things the guards never found." They moved quickly through the corridor, past thick metal doors and flickering lights. The deeper they went, the louder the hum of machinery became. At the end of the hall, Alan stopped in front of a metal maintenance panel. He reached into the sleeve of his jumpsuit and pulled out a small wire hook. "They think I'm crazy," he said as he pried the panel loose. "That's what makes it easy to disappear." Behind the panel was a narrow opening, dark and cold, a maintenance crawl space. Marcus frowned. "We're going in there?" Alan looked back at him. "If you want to see the truth, yes." Marcus took a deep breath and followed. The tunnel was tight and metallic, forcing them to crawl on hands and knees. Their breaths echoed in the cramped space. The air smelled like dust and old metal. As they crawled, Marcus noticed strange marks scratched into the walls, letters, numbers, even names. Some were decades old. "What is this place?" he whispered. "Every Supermax is ghosts," Alan said quietly. "Men who tried to escape. Men who didn't make it. The government filled the holes, built new walls, and told the world this place was perfect." He glanced back at Marcus. "But nothing's perfect." They crawled deeper until the tunnel opened into a small chamber. It was an old maintenance hub, covered in rusted pipes and hanging cables. A single emergency bulb flickered above. "This is below the control wing," Alan explained. "No cameras, no sensors. They sealed it off after the last riot." Marcus looked around. "How do you know all this?" Alan gave a faint grin. "Because I helped build part of this prison, back before they locked me inside it." Before Marcus could respond, a sudden thud echoed from behind them. Then another. Something heavy was moving through the tunnel they had just crawled through. Alan's eyes narrowed. "They found us faster than I thought." Marcus turned toward the sound. "You mean the guards?" Alan shook his head. "No, not guards." A deep metallic groan filled the air, like steel bending under pressure. Then came the sound of dragging metal. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. Marcus's chest tightened. "What is that?" Alan's face turned pale. "Whatever it is, it's been down here longer than we have." The bulb above them flickered violently, then went out. Darkness swallowed the room. "Alan," Marcus whispered. "Stay quiet," came the low reply. Then through the blackness, a voice echoed, deep, distorted, and cold. "No one leaves Florence." Marcus's blood ran cold. The voice was the same one he'd heard through the wall back in the cell. The sound of something scraping metal moved closer, louder now. Alan grabbed Marcus's arm and hissed, "Move!" They stumbled forward into another narrow tunnel, crawling fast. Behind them, the scraping sound followed, now mixed with a slow, guttural breathing. "Left!" Alan shouted, pointing toward a side passage. They turned sharply, crawling until they burst through another loose panel into a larger corridor. Marcus collapsed against the wall, gasping. "What was that thing?" Alan didn't answer. He just looked back toward the dark tunnel. "That voice doesn't belong to any man still alive." Before Marcus could speak, the overhead alarms began blaring again, louder than before. The red lights returned, flooding the corridor in a bloody glow. Then came a mechanical voice over the intercom. "Sector for lockdown initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately." Alan looked up. Evacuate? That means there's something in here even they're afraid of. Marcus stared at him, breathing hard. You said you knew a way out. Alan nodded slowly. I do. But after tonight, it might be the last time anyone sees daylight from inside these walls. He turned toward the end of the corridor, where another heavy door waited in the red light. Come on, Marcus. If we stop now, we'll never leave this place alive. Marcus followed, his heart pounding, every step echoing in the endless concrete hallway. Behind them, the scraping sound began again, soft, steady, relentless. And somewhere deep in the walls of ADX Florence, a whisper followed them like a curse. You can't escape what's buried here. Marcus and Alan ran down the long corridor, their footsteps echoing off the concrete walls. The red lights kept flashing, bathing everything in a pulsing glow that made the shadows seem alive. The scraping sound behind them grew fainter, but it never stopped completely. Marcus's chest burned with every breath. Where are we even going? He gasped. Alan didn't slow down. The lower maintenance yard. It connects to the old ventilation tunnels. If the system hasn't been sealed, it leads to the outer yard. They reached another blast door, massive, with layers of steel bolts and warning signs that read authorized personnel only. Alan pulled a small wrench-shaped tool from his pocket and jammed it into control panel. Sparks flew. Move, he shouted, as the door began to grind open inch by inch. The moment it was wide enough, they slipped through. The room beyond was enormous, dark, filled with rusted machinery, broken pipes, and dripping water. It smelled of oil and decay. The ceiling was high, with steel catwalks crisscrossing above. This looks like a power hub, Marcus said, scanning the area. It is, Alan replied. Used to supply the solitary blocks. Nobody's been here in years. The sound of heavy boots interrupted him. Both men froze. Flashlights flickered in the distance. Guards. The echoes of their voices bounced through the room. Alan grabbed Marcus's arm. Up there, he whispered, pointing to the catwalk. They climbed a rusted ladder, trying to stay quiet. The metal creaked under their weight. Below, the guards' voices grew clearer. Sector 4 is clear. Move to Junction 12. Marcus held his breath as one of the flashlights swept close enough to light the ladder. The guard paused, squinting. Then his radio crackled, and he turned away. When the sound faded, Marcus whispered, You sure this will work? Alan nodded, his eyes scanning the upper walls. That vent. He pointed toward a large circular shaft with loose grating. It leads to the surface. It's a straight climb. They crossed the catwalk carefully. The shaft was wide enough to fit one person at a time. Cold air rushed through it, carrying the faint smell of pine trees and snow. Marcus looked up and saw a glimmer of moonlight through the grate. Freedom. For the first time in years, he felt something close to hope. Alan started climbing first, his hands gripping the metal rungs with practiced ease. Marcus followed close behind. The higher they went, the louder the air whooshed through the tunnel. Halfway up, Marcus froze. He thought he heard something, an echo, low and dragging, like steel scraping against concrete far below. He looked down. The tunnel below was empty. Still, the sound didn't stop. Alan, Marcus whispered, It's following us. Alan didn't look back. Keep moving. They climbed until Alan reached the top grate. He pushed it with his shoulder. It didn't budge. He tried again, harder this time. It's jammed, he muttered. Marcus climbed up beside him and pressed to. The grate shifted slightly but stayed in place. The metal was cold enough to burn their hands. Then came the voice again, this time right below them, rising through the shaft. No one leaves Florence. Marcus's blood went cold. He looked down and saw nothing, just shadows. But the sound of metal scraping grew louder, climbing toward them. Alan slammed his shoulder into the grate again. Help me? Together, they pushed until it finally broke loose with a loud clang. A burst of freezing air hit them. Alan hauled himself out first, rolling onto the snow-covered ground outside. Marcus followed, gasping as the cold hit his face. For the first time in years, he saw the night sky, vast, black, and endless. Stars glimmered above the dark outline of the Rocky Mountains. But there was no time to celebrate. The alarms from the prison blared louder now, echoing across the yard. Searchlights swept through the fog. Alan pointed toward the outer fence, a wall of steel and razor wire. "That way!" They ran, boots crunching through the snow. Helicopters roared overhead, beams of light cutting through the mist. The fence loomed closer. "We'll never make it," Marcus shouted. Alan looked back, his face set. "We don't have to." He knelt by a power junction near the base of the fence and pulled 2 wires free. Sparks flew again. "This is an escape," he said. "It's a message." Marcus stared. "What are you talking about?" Alan connected the wires, and a sharp electric hum filled the air. The lights across the prison flickered, one by one, like a wave moving outward. "Every system they built to control us," Alan said, standing up, "is about to shut down." The ground trembled. The alarms cut off. The helicopters froze midair as if the power had blinked out across the entire facility. Then darkness. Only the red emergency lights glowed faintly through the fog. Alan looked at Marcus and said quietly, "Now the world will see what they've been hiding." A sharp sound cracked through the night. Gunfire. Alan staggered, falling to his knees. The spotlight found them instantly. "Don't move," a voice from the loudspeaker boomed. Marcus froze. Alan's hand gripped his arm, blood dripping onto the snow. "Don't let them bury this place again," he whispered. Then his hand went still. Guards surrounded Marcus, shouting orders, their rifles raised. He dropped to the ground, staring at Alan's motionless body. The snow around them glowed red under flashing lights. As they cuffed his hands, Marcus heard the loudspeakers stutter back to life. Static hissed. Then a low voice came through, the same voice from the tunnels. "He's not dead." Marcus turned his head slowly. Alan's body twitched once. His eyes opened, faintly glowing in the red light. The guards shouted, but Marcus didn't hear them. All he could see was Alan rising slowly, the alarms roaring back to life, the words echoing again through every speaker in the yard. "No one leaves Florence." The ground shook. Lights exploded across the compound. The night became chaos. And as Marcus was dragged away, his eyes locked on Alan's, alive, calm, and unblinking in the cold Colorado dark.